Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I have to say I told you so. I have to say I told you so to a lot of people, not any of you out there, but especially to the people in the media, the people that were trying to tell you that there was no way that Paramount SkyDance was going to be able to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, and there was no way that the shareholders would go against the wishes of all those beautiful creatives, the 4,000 of them that signed the letter saying, don't do it. Well, they did it anyway because they wanted to make money, and that's a good thing. Let's get to the story. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K. With your kind help, I can, which means double check you're still subscribed. If not, click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, turn on all notifications, hit the thumbs up, then give me a comment on what your thoughts are around the Paramount SkyDance Warner Brothers Discovery deal ended up being. What it says here, according to the story that I wrote this morning, we also have a version of it from Trevor on That Park Place. Shareholders rubber stamped $111 billion Paramount Warner deal, crushing the 3,900 signature creative revolt. Creative. What a laugh. From the story, Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders voted overwhelmingly to approve Paramount SkyDance's $111 billion all-cash takeover, per Deadline and Variety reporting filed this morning. The special meeting delivered a near-unanimous yes vote, despite the open letter signed by more than 3,900 filmmakers, actors, and crew, likely all people who suspected their political posturing would limit jobs in the future. Well, of course it would. They were 100% very anti this deal because they knew that they were going to try to moderate the content for a change coming out of, well, Paramount CBS, but now Warner Brothers Discovery, and that's something they felt like they only had one last option. Well, not anymore. They're going to continue to get rid of the people who are on the extremes, and that works for both sides. So David Ellison called the outcome a new chapter of opportunity, while Glass Lewis and others on the money side had already signaled that this had approval weeks ago. In other words, everything I was telling you was based on what, like, the people with the money thought, the people that were on the side of the proxy holders, the people who wanted to just get out and get out with a record profit, because they overpaid for this company. Let's not lie about that. But it is a brand new day. In fact, the translation is Wall Street and sovereign wealth funds voted with their wallets, and the creative class's supposed moral grandstanding changed exactly nothing. Not that this wasn't expected. Of course not. We always knew this was the way it would go down. But the next step is glorious because it's the playbook for everything that consolidates every single time. Mergers and acquisitions, even merger of equals, somebody's going to come out on top, and somebody's going to see the pink slips and the exit door very quickly, despite the poison pill that was inserted at the last moment here. Now, financing is locked. Debt targets were slashed from $54 billion to $49 billion, so that's a $6 billion in promised synergies. Are now official marching orders going forward, and the combined entity inherits two massive libraries, Max and Paramount Plus, CNN, CBS, and freshly negotiated NFL rights leverage. Although, let me say it this way. There definitely is something I've mentioned before, and that is the NFL launched a renegotiation with everybody prior to this thing closing because they saw the writing on the wall. There won't be as many people bidding for the NFL rights to drive the price extraordinarily high. And the federal government's about to look at the NFL. They've already launched an investigation into whether or not they are complying with a mandate they were given all the way back in the 60s to maintain or attain their antitrust abilities right now. So we'll get into that later. Of course, this isn't hype. It's a textbook response to streaming fragmentation, big tech bundles, and linear TV's terminal decline that, much like radio, looks, well, to have more staying power. Reach limits and old ownership's caps were always a pipe dream, which has been in a lot of stories recently. I don't think anybody's going to stay inside the lines anymore. I think they're going to get to the point where you're either a monopoly or you're not. you could already call Disney like straddling that fence already. So it's not like this was out of nowhere. And of course, I wrote a piece on the Nexstar Tegna merger that you can find also over at That Park Place right now, which breaks that down for you on why a judge blocked it and why that's really not going to work. So I do my very best all the time to call out Hollywood hypocrisy. This is its peak with J.J. Abrams, David Lindelof, and many of the other acolytes over there that were just trying to keep their positions of power. And of course, their power's already been crumbling for a while. They don't even have the deal they had before with Warner Brothers Discovery. So the same town that cheered Netflix's subscriber-chasing binge era now acts shocked that consolidation is the only survival tool left. Well, there's other tools coming, and I have another story coming out on That Park Place soon about AI and its implementation despite all those negotiations behind the scenes with all the guilds. This is always going to happen. Many things were always going to happen, much to the chagrin of people like Mark Ruffalo. In fact, Ruffalo and company warned of tens of thousands of job losses. I don't know if it'll be that many, yet stayed silent when their own streamers canceled shows and outsourced post-production. That's odd, right? Especially over there at Disney Minus. Now, I'm not sure about you, but when the overproduction bubble, mind you, that was referred to as peak TV, popped after the strikes and all the dust settled from all of that mess, nobody called it an existential threat to storytelling diversity or anything else. The industry was flooded with the modern audience appealing content that nobody watched or wanted, which can be seen in the streaming ratings, which is why they're desperately trying to bring back garbage like The Acolyte as a success in the top 10 over at Disney Minus, which is really just means that somebody over there wanted to like promote that again since they spend so much money on it. Regardless, there's no modern audience. It never existed, and they don't spend their time or money for any of those shows or films either. So where's the, extra earnings you were going to get from all this DE&I? Now, fans already live in an era of saturation and overload. Believe me, you got tons of things to pick from, including my channel and also That Garden Place channel. But you're going to start seeing a lot of people focusing in on the consolidated groups because then they only have to have one app that's going to likely filter into one location. So the aftermath highlights diminished power of the prodigals, and that would be everybody that, followed J.J. Abrams into the nihilistic oblivion that they've been doing for the last decade. Hollywood is finally admitting, through ineffective tantrums and profit metrics on the decline, that measured production and broad audience appeal beat volume at all costs every time. And that was the Disney Minus model. Regardless, there's a lot more to this story, and I certainly would encourage you to go over to That Park Place and read it. Also, check out Trevor's story over there. He wrote from a different perspective. Mine's a little more business-oriented. Also has a little more opinion in it, as you could see. But I'm just going to tell you, there's not much left for these companies. You have to ask yourself a question: what's the future going to be over there? Do you think that regulators are actually going to let this, continue through? I don't see why they wouldn't. They already indicated, an affirmative going into it. They certainly didn't want Netflix to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. And once they get all the way through the stabilization, which is likely to take them a year or two, because that's kind of, if you look back at when Paramount SkyDance merged, it took them about a year to get their feet under them. I think the same thing's going to happen, although it'll be faster, because I do believe Barry Weiss will ultimately be the head over all news, and that will come to much of the chagrin of the folks over there at CNN. I think it's great to get certain other parties out there that, tell the truth over there. But, maybe we get less of the message and more of the honest. And that would certainly be a breath of fresh air for Warner Brothers Discovery. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What are yours? I asked you a bunch of questions. I would love a bunch of answers. If you have other thoughts on this deal or you think I'm wrong, let me know that in the comment section down below as well. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just probably not watching a lot of the Old garbledygook, especially Disney minus.